I don't know how they did it. All I know is they did it. I don't think anybody knows how they did it, how they lifted those stones, how they brought them up to that level. I think we're looking, again, at a lost technology.
Over the years, the ancient Egyptians have left us in awe of their incredible inventions, from the construction of the pyramids of Giza to the lifting of the heaviest of structures without using a crane.
I always go back to the ancient Egyptian traditions that speak of priests chanting as these huge blocks were lifted into the air.
However, recent discoveries show that the Egyptians did nothing compared to a civilization that existed before them. Join us as we examine some of the most compelling cases of pre-Egyptian technology left by an advanced civilization that disappeared. Schist disk. It doesn't matter if you look at it once or forever, either way, nothing ancient comes to mind. This is why you'd be shocked to realize that this disk existed as far back as 3000 BCE. How, right? Since its discovery in 1936 in the Egyptian village of Saqqara, the schist disk has been used to support the widely held contention that the ancient Egyptian culture acquired technology far superior to their own at some point in their development from an outside source. Or maybe there was a previous advanced civilization before the ancient Egyptians. Strengthening these beliefs is the fact that after nearly 2 centuries of concerted study on Egyptian culture, it was found that the Egyptians of 3000 BCE did not have the capabilities to create such a sophisticated piece of technology. Yet, this was found on their soil. On the day of its discovery, renowned British Egyptologist Brian Walter Emery wasn't expecting to discover an artifact as intriguing as the disk, as he and his team were only excavating the tomb of Prince Sabu, son of a Juib pharaoh, governor of the first dynasty of the 3000 BCE. The schist disk was found among some common funerary objects, including stone vessels, flint knives, arrows, and a few copper tools. The discovery got its name from the term schist, derived from a Greek word meaning to split, which refers to the relative ease with which this material can be split along the lateral plane. It was derived from clay and mud, which have undergone a series of extreme physical chemicals, transitioning from shale to slate to phyllite. Apart from the fact that the existence of ancient objects made of this hard but brittle material is far from rare, the design and craftsmanship of this disk, in particular, is what is astounding, yet baffling. Not only would it have required extraordinary practice and patience to create, but other similarly crafted pieces also have never been found, which makes it seem like the only existing piece. While craftsmen have tried to recreate this disk, none of them has been able to make anything like it for over 2 centuries. Take another look at the disk. Doesn't it just look too familiar? Looks just like a plate or concave steering wheel of a car with 3 cuts or curved shovels that look like the helix of a boat. In the center is an opening with a collar that would appear to function as the receptacle of some axis of a wheel or other unknown mechanism, perhaps a central hub designed to fit onto a wooden pole. The schist disk is approximately 1 centimeter thick, 61 centimeters in diameter, and 10.6 centimeters in the center. Trust experimental archaeologists to always give us some sort of explanation of possible engineering scenarios on how they may have accomplished an incredible feat. But in this disk's case, it remains the question of how on earth these humans conceived and accomplished the creation of such. While the schist disk has left experts scratching their heads for a long time, renowned British Egyptologist Cyril Aldred asserted that regardless of what purpose the object was intended to serve, its design was, without a doubt, a replication of a previous, much older metallic object that was never discovered. Adding to the mystery of the object's construction is the well-documented theory that the introduction of the wheel to Egyptian society didn't occur until the Hyksos invasion of the late Middle Kingdom around 1640 BCE. The Hyksos are historically known to have employed the wheel on several devices, but used it primarily on their military chariots. Thus, one must ask, if the schist disk is not a wheel nor modeled after a wheel, from what was it conceived? And how could a culture that typically used crudely made copper or bronze chisels to hew stone by hand have mastered a technique to work a material as delicate as mica to this extraordinary level of perfection? One thing remains certain, though. The schist disk has its own purpose. If not, why would the Egyptians invest the time, tools, and skills needed to create this object if it didn't serve some specific, very significant purpose? In recent years, there has been speculation that the ancient Egyptians must have been provided advanced technological knowledge from an outside source, perhaps aliens from beyond our solar system. But while this assertion lacks credence with the modern scientific community, there can be no denying that the Egyptians somehow succeeded in technological accomplishments that should have been beyond their abilities, except it was truly from a pre-Egyptian civilization we do not know about. The Osirian. This is an ancient Egyptian temple located at Abydos, to the rear of the mortuary temple of Seti I. The Osirian is a beautiful structure, but weird at the same time, boasting an architectural design that should not have existed when it did. Originally, it was thought to be an old kingdom construction. However, on account of the great blocks of granite, it has now been dated to Seti's reign and is usually interpreted as a cenotaph to Osiris, or more specifically, to Seti as Osiris. Its design is believed to be based on the rock-cut tombs in the Valley of the Kings, reached by a 420 feet subterranean passage in the center of its 10-columned burial chamber, which lies at a lower level than Seti's temple, is a dummy sarcophagus. The Osirian was discovered between 1902 to 1903 by archaeologists Flinders Petrie and Margaret Murray, and ever since, it has raised many questions about how advanced the ancient Egyptians were. While the design of the Osirian baffled the archaeologists for years, some flower of life symbols painted on the inside of one of the monoliths pointed to the use of sacred geometry. For those unfamiliar, sacred geometry is a complicated topic beyond the scope of this Abydos temple guide, but the ancient Egyptians took it very seriously and based much of their architecture and art on special proportions which they regarded as sacred. However, what is unknown is the exact time that the flower of life was painted at Abydos, but Greek text spotted nearby indicates sometime during the Ptolemaic era. What makes it difficult to admit that this structure was built by the Egyptian civilization is that it consists of large square rose granite pillars, most of which are completely void of any carvings or inscriptions, which is unlike the Egyptians who plaster their walls with inscriptions and carvings. However, Egyptians are known to regularly renovate older monuments while adding new artwork. To make the Osirian more of a mystery is its uniqueness from other kingdom monuments, the type not known throughout the history of the Egyptians. But just when you thought you've seen it all, the water surrounding the chamber makes the Osirian a complete wonder. Somehow this water is emerging from inside this structure, a very strange thing to occur in a desert. But even if there's going to be water, not pressurized water like the one here, which suggests something really strange is going on in the Osirian. James Westerman, an explorer, research historian, archaeologist, engineer, and physical scientist, became fascinated with the Osirian on his first expedition to Abydos in 1986, and on subsequent expeditions, he attempted to identify the source of the water flowing into the Osirian first, using ground-penetrating radar. Later, he used dewatering pumps to attempt to reach the source water underneath the structure, but nothing he did gave him the result he sought. Even more baffling, there's no bedrock underneath the structure, as revealed by ground-penetrating radar, seismic technology, and scans from deep wells built in the area, making it unlikely that rock formations exist in isolation beneath it. For years, Westerman had to wait for technological advancement, which only surfaced in 2023, to conduct more research on the site. Westerman and a team received 3 Aquatrol 200 CTD loggers to measure pressure, temperature, conductivity, and total dissolved solids. They deployed one in the Osirian and placed the 2 others in observation wells nearby. So far, the data from the Aquatrols indicates that the water within the Osirian has unique characteristics, making it unlikely that it comes from the same source as the other 2 monitoring wells. The more the Osirian was studied, the more mysterious it became, leaving experts with so many questions, which included, how was it possible to build a structure of this magnitude in a partially submerged sandscape? Where and what is the source of this water? And how does it replenish so quickly in the middle of the Egyptian desert? Unfortunately, the civilization with this mysterious engineering is long gone. Jed Pillar. Over the years, one thing that has helped us to understand the ancient Egyptian culture is the hieroglyphics, and one of the most commonly found is the Djed symbol. With the appearance of a pillar and 3 or more crossbars, there have been several theories as to the meaning of this enigmatic symbol and what it represented to the ancient Egyptians who used it so frequently. Many believe the Djed is a symbol of the god Osiris, specifically his spine. How so? Let's go back in time. According to Egyptian mythology, Osiris was the god of the afterlife who got tricked while visiting Set, the god of disorder, desert, storms, and violence. Osiris was tricked into climbing into a coffin that was built exactly to his size, and he was quickly suffocated, after which the coffin was cast into the Nile. Eventually, the coffin washed up on the shores of Byblos, in Syria, where a sacred tree grew rapidly around it, encasing the coffin within its trunk. The king of the land, unaware of the presence of the coffin, was in awe of the tree's quick growth, and he ordered it cut down to become a pillar in his palace. All the while, Osiris's wife Isis had been searching for him before she came to learn that his body was contained inside the pillar. She became close with the king and queen, and when they granted her a boon, she requested the pillar. Upon being granted the pillar, she removed Osiris's body and consecrated the pillar. Ever since, the pillar has been known as the Pillar of the Djed. But some do not agree with that story. They believed that the Djed was a fertility pillar made from or surrounded by reeds, trees, or sheaves. As Egypt was a treeless land, this may represent the importance of the trees that were imported from Syria. Other accounts associate the Djed with the falcon god of the Memphite necropolis, Seker, then with the Memphite patron god of craftsmen Ptah, sometimes referred to as the noble Djed. The Djed symbol is also sometimes viewed as a pillar supporting the sky. In a palace, the pillars may surround a window, and when viewed from the right angle, it appears that the pillars are supporting the sky. The Djed symbol is also used in a ceremony called raising the Djed. This ceremony is meant to represent Osiris's triumph over Set, in which the pharaoh uses ropes to raise a pillar with the assistance of priests during the ceremony. This coincided with the time of year when the agricultural year began and fields were sown. The Djed has also been used as an amulet, placed near the spines of mummified bodies and the image painted on their coffin. The amulet was intended to allow the deceased to live eternally and to ensure their resurrection. The Egyptian Book of the Dead contains a spell that would be spoken as the amulet was placed on the mummy, in hopes that it would allow the deceased to sit up and regain use of their spine. In addition, it was often seen in hieroglyphic inscriptions and even as part of architectural structures. Its ubiquitous appearance gives the impression that this symbol was both important and sacred in ancient Egyptian belief systems. But is that all that there is about the Djed pillar today? Definitely not. This pillar has reminded experts of Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, with speculations that Tesla built the tower with the Djed's energy. The tower was an early experimental wireless transmission station designed and built by Nikola Tesla on Long Island between 1901 and 1902, located in the village of Shoreham, New York. Tesla intended to transmit messages, telephony, and even facsimile images across the Atlantic Ocean to England and ships at sea based on his theories of using the Earth to conduct the signals. All he intended was to make energy free for all. But today, there has been speculation that his obsession with Egypt must have been because he knew a secret about the Djed pillar that no one else knew. Saqqara bird. 100 years ago, the adventure of flying began with the Wright brothers and their dual-propeller glider with a gasoline engine. From that moment on, man crowned a dream dating back to the minds of his ancestors. Leonardo da Vinci sure had plans of a flight precursor with his drawings of sails, gliders, and propellers. However, he wasn't the first man to think about flight, as Icarus wanted to be as close to the sun as possible so badly. But did this thought bear anything significant? Take a look at this controversial, out-of-place artifact known as the Saqqara glider, or the Saqqara bird. At the end of the 19th century, an archaeological expedition found a bird-shaped artifact among other objects in a Saqqara tomb dating back to 200 BC. It is made of sycamore maple wood, a consecrated tree linked to the goddess Hathor and a symbol of immortality. Today, You can find it in room 22 of the Egyptian Museum of Cairo, with a length of about 14 centimeters and a wingspan of 18 centimeters. It earned its name Saqqara bird from its beak and eyes, which points to the representation of a hawk, which is an emblem of god Horus. But what made experts curious was the tail, which is squared, strangely upright, and supposedly with a sunken part that could accommodate something. The wings opened, but without the slightest curvature. They thin towards the ends and have been snapped inside a groove. And yes, for a birdie structure, it does not have feet. We would have said it was influenced by an artist's extreme stylization, but it does not have any kind of carvings to represent the feathers of a hypothetical bird. However, we cannot rule out that this peculiarity originated from paint that has almost completely disappeared. It could be a ritual object, a toy, or a weather vane to be placed on sacred boats to indicate the direction of the wind. Of everyone who examined and said something about the artifact, the first to think differently was Khalil Messiha, professor of artistic anatomy at the University of Helwan, who seemed to recognize in the unusual bird the scale model of a glider, albeit lacking in the tail. He dared to write it down, and since then, the artifact has been called, wrongly or rightly, the Saqqara glider or plane of the pharaoh. In the 70s of the last century, the Egyptian Ministry of Culture put together a commission to shed light on the mystery, and the experts agreed on the uniqueness of the piece, claiming it was not a simple toy but a model that could have aerodynamic value. Martin Gregori, a designer and manufacturer of gliders, took the trouble to reproduce the aircraft, but could not actually manage to make it fly because of its instability. However, the naturalist biologist Ivan Terence Sanderson had a completely different outcome during his simulation. By modifying the model and using balsa wood instead of sycamore, he proved he could make it fly with just a slight push, even making it glide. Perhaps that missing piece at the back of the plane of the pharaoh could reasonably be the tail of the plane, controlling stability and balance, which governs rotation and allows for takeoff, ascent, and descent in aircraft. This speculation only makes the ancient Egyptians scary people, as you continue to wonder, did the ancient Egyptians know how to fly? It's time for our subscribers' pick. From the mysterious granite box of Aswan to the alabaster basins of the Sun Temple, these discoveries have made the archaeologists believe in the unimaginably advanced technology left behind by pre-Egyptian civilization that disappeared. When the granite box was discovered, it was observed that the ancient Egyptians used it, but they didn't craft it. This was established through what we learned from Egyptologists, who told us that in the dynastic times, which are times of the reign of pharaohs, copper or bronze tools were used to cut angles and detailed shapes with extreme craftsmanship and sophistication. This implies that the ancient Egyptians didn't craft this granite box. The same goes for the aforementioned schist disc that looks like a modern vehicle wheel or a part of a modern machine. And finally, the alabaster basins found in the Sun Temple, which have very detailed cuts that can only be achieved with advanced technology. How exactly did the ancient humans think of these artifacts, and how did they eventually create them without modern technology? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section as we go into the details of the alabaster basins of the Sun Temple. Between 1898 and 1901, the Sun Temple of Niuserre was excavated by Egyptologists Ludwig Borchardt and Friedrich Wilhelm von Bissing on behalf of the Berlin Museum. This temple was said to be constructed on the orders of Niuserre-ini, who was the 6th king of the 5th dynasty of Egypt. While it is unclear when exactly Niuserre reigned in Egypt, it is estimated that he came to the throne early in the second half of the 25th century BCE. The temple was built in honor of the sun god known as Ra, and it consists of a rectangular walled enclosure, which is 100 by 76 meters, with an entrance situated on the eastern face. The complex is primarily built out of mud brick, covered with limestone, and is situated on the shores of the ancient Abusir lake bed. Entrance to the temple is gained through a small structure called the Valley Temple on the eastern edge of the complex, which is partially submerged and has suffered extensive damage. This temple itself is not the intrigue, but the discoveries found inside of it. It has a large open courtyard where the ruins of a colossal stone obelisk lie. The obelisk, which was constructed out of irregularly shaped limestone blocks, had a pedestal red granite base, sloping sides, and a square top. With the height of the obelisk estimated to be between 35 and 50 meters tall and an altar located in the center of the courtyard, it is believed that it was a place of sacrifice. Records recovered from Userkaf's Sun Temple suggest that 2 oxen and 2 geese were sacrificed each day, and on the north side of the courtyard are the remains of several storerooms, which may have been where the sacrificial animals were slaughtered. To crown it all was the discovery of 9 circular alabaster basins along the east wall of the courtyard, which has been theorized to be originally 10 basins. Some scholars believe these basins were used to collect blood from animal sacrifice, and to support this hypothesis, they point to evidence of grooves cut into the stone floor of the courtyard that may have been used to drain away the blood. Other researchers, however, think that the basins were probably only symbolic or decorative, since no knives or other equipment related to sacrifice have been discovered in the area. It has also been hypothesized that these basins were used as leveling devices for large areas, linked together and filled with water to provide a common point of reference. But the function of these basins isn't as mysterious as their creation. A closer look shows how they have been carefully structured and have holes drilled in them in equal sizes, suggesting the use of a tool too advanced for the time these basins are said to have been created. The Pyramids of Zawiat el-Aryan. Right in the heart of Zawiat el-Aryan are 2 mysterious pyramids known as the Layer Pyramid and the unfinished Northern Pyramid. The Layer Pyramid, believed to have been constructed during the reign of Pharaoh Khaba in the 3rd dynasty, dates back to approximately 2670 BC. While its core remains largely unexplored, the surrounding area boasts large mastabas, which are believed to have served as dwellings for high-ranking officials, which indicates the royal significance of Zawiat el-Aryan in ancient Egypt. This pyramid, together with the unfinished Northern Pyramid, sometimes referred to as the Pyramid of Baka or Bikeris, is a testament to the remarkable architectural prowess of the Old Kingdom period. Archaeologists and Egyptologists suggest that the unfinished pyramid belongs to the early or mid-4th dynasty, but what nobody knows is the identity of its builder, which remains a subject of debate among scholars. One of the intriguing aspects of the unfinished pyramid is the presence of numerous inscriptions written in black and red ink within its chamber and descending stairway. These inscriptions hold clues to the pyramid's owner, but the only challenge is in the correct reading of the name. Various interpretations have been proposed, from Nebka to Seth-Ka, leaving us with a tantalizing mystery that may remain unsolved forever. Another bad news is the limited knowledge surrounding the superstructure of this pyramid, as only the square base, hewn from natural bedrock, has been completed, measuring an impressive 200 meters by 200 meters. Faint remnants suggest the presence of a surrounding pedestal, likely intended to support a limestone covering. Unfortunately, the exact dimensions and planned slope of the pyramid remain elusive due to the absence of covering blocks or the pyramidion, and it is worth noting that pyramid pedestals were consistently larger than the pyramid's base itself. This leaves room for speculation that the original design may have intended a notably smaller structure. The substructure of the pyramid, on the other hand, presents a more detailed picture. It comprises a T-shaped shaft, with the corridor oriented from south to north and the chamber extending from east to west. Intriguingly, the entire shaft lacks any remaining ceiling, raising the possibility that it was never roofed. Also, mystifying us is a descending stairway into the chamber, which encounters a horizontal surface of unknown purpose midway along its length. Also, discovered within proximity to the western extremity of the chamber was an unusual vat. Sporting an oval shape, it was embedded into one of the stone blocks constituting the chamber's floor. The intriguing aspect is that this vat appears to have been brought into the chamber during the foundation's construction, as its dimensions render it impossible to pass through the passageway leading to the chamber. However, the vat has an intact oval lid, which suggests that the vat was sealed at some point. Although it's been reported that traces of a substance were discovered within the vat, regrettably, these substances were never subjected to closer examination and have since been lost to time. The Dendera Light. This particular one is very controversial, and it's all because it is not exactly an artifact of potential ancient technology, but the possible depiction of such. On the wall of one of the best-preserved ancient temples in Egypt, the temple of the Egyptian goddess Hathor at Dendera was an image known as the Dendera light. This image at first glance looks like a bulb similar to a Crookes tube, with a lotus socket at one end, a cable traveling underneath, and a snake-shaped cord filament inside of it. In the most popular representation of the Dendera light, a priest is shown holding up the lamp, and a few smaller figures are seen below it, where one of them appears to be directing the light bulb upwards. A two-armed jed pillar is also shown with the bulb, and the hands are apparently connected to the snake-like cord inside. There is also a baboon presented in front of the lamp while holding two knives in front of itself. The first to propose that this image depicted an electrical lamp was a Norwegian electrical engineer, after which Austrian authors Peter Krasse and Rainer Habeck brought the hypothesis to worldwide attention when they published a book based on the Dendera reliefs titled Das Licht der Pharaonen, Hochtechnologie und elektrischer Strom im alten Ägypten, meaning Light of the Pharaohs, High Technology and Electricity in Ancient Egypt. Another electrical engineer named Garn later tested the hypothesis and constructed a working model of the Dendera light. In an English translation of an excerpt from the book, How the Dendera Light Could Have Generated Light in the Past. However, some Egyptologists have disagreed, citing the inscriptions associated with the image. The inscriptions tell us that Harsamtis, another creator god, is the snake rising from the lotus flower, with his body being carried by the jed pillar on the day barge, which is the so-called cable in the Dendera light hypothesis. However, whether or not this is a depiction of a light bulb, we can't deny other evidence of advanced technology of pre-Egyptian civilization. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.